Tensions between Washington and Tehran have reached a fever pitch following a brazen Iranian drone incident near the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. US Central Command reported that an Iranian Shahed-139 drone aggressively approached the carrier in the Arabian Sea, approximately 500 miles off Iran's southern coast, prompting an F-35C fighter jet to shoot it down in self-defense. Well, it seems like this incident, far from being an isolated event, was merely the opening act of coordinated provocation displayed by Tehran. Because hours later, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps forces approached and challenged a US-flagged chemical tanker in the Strait of Hormuz with 2 gunboats and a drone, threatening to board and seize the vehicle in international waters. Well, these synchronized incidents represent the most significant military escalation since diplomatic channels reopened, signaling that Tehran is willing to operate dangerously close to the line that could trigger full-scale conflict between US and Iran. Well, what makes Tuesday's incident particularly concerning is its timing. Scheduled diplomatic talks between US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian officials meant to begin later this week were already fragile. Though the White House says that negotiations are still scheduled, but now many believe and argue that the foundation may have been cracked. Iran, in what US officials describe as walkback from previous agreement, has now demanded a complete shift in the negotiation framework, moving the talks from Istanbul to Oman, excluding regional participations and limiting discussions solely to nuclear issue rather than ballistic missiles and regional proxy activities. This represents a dramatic hardening of Tehran's position. In fact, as per reports, some US officials privately warned that Iran may be deliberately using the diplomatic process as cover to buy time while engaging in proactive military actions. A classic negotiation tactic when one side doubts its ability to achieve favorable terms through diplomatic channels. Now, the critical question facing both nations is whether this incident constitutes the spark that ignites wider conflict. Military experts and regional analysts remain deeply divided. Well, first of all, Iran frames the drone incident as a routine and lawful mission in international waters, claiming its surveillance data was successfully transmitted before the aircraft was down. On the other hand, the US counters that the drone continued to fly towards the ship despite de-escalatory measures, indicating hostile intent by Tehran. Now, President Trump has deployed what he calls an armada, which includes the Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, 3 Tomahawk armed destroyers, F-35 stealth jets and F-18 Growler electronic warfare aircraft, all within the striking distance of Iranian targets. Trump himself has suggested that military strikes remains on the table if diplomacy fails, warning that bad things would probably happen if a deal cannot be reached. Well, the calculus here is razor thin. One miscalculation, one aggressive drone that refuses to turn back, one Iranian gunboat that moves too quickly. Any of these could trigger an escalatory cycle which will have ramifications beyond anyone's imagination. Now, here's the most important question. What happens next? Are we looking at a full-scale conflict, or things will get back to normal as the talks progress between US and Iran? Well, the answer is complicated and multi-layered. Well, first let's understand what all is transpiring. Tehran is under immense pressure following the crackdown on anti-government protests, the deadliest internal unrest since Iran's 1979 revolution. The IRGC seeks to project strength, appears emboldened to conduct proactive operations. On the other hand, Trump's administration, having already demonstrated willingness to use military force elsewhere, many view the Iranian drone incident as a direct challenge to American credibility and naval dominance. And here comes the most worrying part. The UN Security Council remains paralyzed, regional mediators lack leverage, and both Washington and Tehran have painted themselves into diplomatic corners with rigid red lines. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has added fuel to this fire by declaring Iran cannot be trusted to keep its promise, further making things complicated. Well, one thing is absolutely clear, that unless one side makes significant concessions, something neither appears too willing to do so, the drone incident may well transform from a cautionary tale into the opening salvos of a conflict that reshaped the Middle East for years to come.